The Devil's Mask by HillyBilly Creeper. The story I'm about to tell you is true, but this particular story is one you will never find in history books or online for that matter. A story that was passed down through generations of Native American ancestry. The natives don't really speak about it, but you may hear it under hushed murmurs or whispers. A dark stain on history that we wish not to repeat. It is a mask, but not just any mask. It's called the Devil's Mask. This particular mask is cursed, and whoever possesses it either winds up hurt or worse. You are probably wondering, how did a mask of evil come to be? I'll tell you exactly, word for word, something that my people have kept to themselves for far too long, but chose not to discuss it. As I've mentioned, there was an old shaman in the tribe who healed the sick and occasionally brought back the dead. But behind the shaman's kindness was something evil, something dark, something too dark to describe. But if I had to put it in easy words, I would have to say that his heart was deeply corrupted by the devil himself. The reason why I say this is because, under his people, he would perform terrible rituals by using his own people, sometimes outsiders. The type of rituals he would perform were horrifying, to say the least. If his victims were male, he would castrate them and use their genitalia as an ingredient for a potion. If they were lucky, he would knock them out so they wouldn't feel the excruciating pain of their own testicles being severed from their bodies. If it was a woman, he would violate them horribly, and after, he would mutilate their uterus. If they were with child, he would forcibly remove the fetus and use it in his spells. Sometimes he would sacrifice the fetus to his dark master, and if not those two things, he would simply eat it straight from the woman's womb, as he would laugh while eating the unborn child. It just kept getting worse through time. Sometimes he would castrate them or mutilate them, or he would remove vital organs, sometimes the heart or lung, so he would appease his lord, Satan. Until one day, he was found out by a passing young brave who walked towards his tent and heard the gurgling screams coming from it. They were faint, but only loud enough if you had gotten close to there. The young warrior walked in and discovered the ghastly sight. I started to run to the village elder. When this came to light to the village elder, he had his best warrior catch the shaman and bring him back so he could be judged by his own village. When the shaman was caught, the elder sentenced him to death by beheading. As the shaman awaited death, his village offered one last request. The shaman requested to wear his mask that he made from the flesh and bones of his victims in the shape of the devil's face. As he put it on, he spoke these words:
"Killing me will not make your suffering go away. It will only make it worse, for I have the power of my god Satan, and as long as I believe in his word, I shall live on for eternity." So I laid his head down on a stump, and with one swift swing of an axe, he was dead. After he was executed, he was buried along with his mask. But with one problem: the mask did not burn. No matter how hot they had gotten the flames, it just would not turn to ashes like its owner. So the village elder took the mask and locked it away to never see daylight. But that day would end when one of the chief's grandsons got their hands on it and put it on. Not even a day later, he contracted an illness and died. It didn't end with the little boy.
Things just got worse as long as the mask remained in that village. Women started to have miscarriages. Men suffered from heart attacks and blood loss automatically. Even the other children were not safe. They all contracted the same illness that the little boy did a day earlier, and they all died. The village was almost completely wiped out at this point due to that damn mask. If it wasn't some mysterious illness, it was due to invaders who would come and kill their best of warriors and rape their women, killing them afterwards. For the lucky few who did survive, they were enslaved, all because of that fucking mask. Something had to be done, the elder thought. So he gathered up what was left of the warriors that weren't killed during the invasion and weren't taken by the invaders. He had them take that mask as far away from the village as best as they could. So they did. They took it to a secluded area where no one could disturb it or remove it from its hiding spot. So they got to work and dug a hole so deep into the earth that even God himself would have a hard time getting to it. They buried it. Since they were far from home, they decided to set up a camp at least a mile from the hiding spot until morning, and that's when they would head back and be rid of that curse for good. But their celebration was cut short, for the next morning, when they went back to make sure that it had stayed buried, that's when they found an empty hole and the mask was nowhere to be found. That's where the story ends. I'm afraid that, to this day, no one knows where that mask is. They don't even care where it is, as long as it never comes back. That meant that everything would be normal again for my ancestors. So I thought, until one day I was in town getting groceries and I passed an old antique shop. Right there in the window stood a sign that said, "Authentic Native American Mask for Sale." And next to the sign was a blood-stained mask with a horrible face and horns protruding from its forehead, and that's when my blood turned as cold ice. I thought to myself, that couldn't be it. That could not be the same mask from the stories. As I looked at it through the shop window, I could have sworn that it was looking right back at me, staring straight into my soul, knowing my fears and thoughts. After standing there for what felt like an eternity, I got the hell out of there and drove home. Before I got to my house, I picked up my cell phone and called my great-great-grandfather, who was chief of the reservation. I told him that it had come back, and my great-great-grandfather asked me what I meant. I told him that the mask, the one from the fucking stories, had found its way home. My really great-grandfather stood quiet for a minute on the phone. That's when he began to speak.
"Where is it, grandson? Tell me."
He replied with fear in his voice. I told him it was in an antique shop in town. Then he spoke again and told me,
"Whatever you are doing, do it and come by to pick me up. We're going back to that place to end this curse once and for all."
So I turned around and went by his place on the reservation and picked him up and took him straight into town to the antique shop. About the time we got there, an accident had occurred. A fire had broken out at the restaurant next door to the shop and spread to it. Before the fire was extinguished, everything on that entire strip was burned to ashes. I came to find out that there were people still inside that had perished in the fire, along with everything else. The firemen scouted around for what was left of the people and or items. Not a damn thing survived. The mask was gone, and I know what you're thinking. What if it went up in flames just like everyone and everything else? But I know it didn't. Because if it didn't burn then, I know for sure as fuck it didn't burn now. And it's still out there waiting to come back. Waiting to finish the rest of us off just like the shaman promised. So if anyone out there sees a Native American devil's mask drenched in blood, get as far away as you possibly can, or you will become its next victim.
Hello, listener. If you've made it this far, why not follow me on Twitter at CreepypastaED? Don't forget to click the link to subscribe, if you dare. And if you have a creepypasta or any chilling, creepy, spine-tingling story you want to be heard, send it to CreepypastaEd@gmail.com. Look me up on the Creepypasta Amino app. And remember,
don't fall asleep.